Okay.
There you go. Okay. Thanks, Ashley. Hi. We'll have fun. We'll have fun. We'll run through this. Like now I gotta go like this. So now one thing is like when we talk about, we're gonna talk about generational diversity as a competitive advantage. And one thing is like, there's always those lists, right? Those lists of what kids born in the 2000s will never experience. Right. So here's the top 10 list of things that the kids from the 2000s won't ever experience. Burning your legs on a metal playground slide. Not gonna happen. No, don't know that experience. Long distance phone calls. Having to wait until 8 p.m. to call grandma, right? Don't remember that. Interacting with a phone company operator. Have you ever called an operator? I remember as like having to call, I was like, in fact, I had to call and one time have the operator do a break-in on a conversation. I got to get a hold of mom. Can you break in the conversation? It's like, oh yeah, that got me in trouble. Waiting 2 weeks to see if you got a good picture after your vacation. And then it was 1 hour photo mat, right? It's like kind of like what the coffee place in off of Towanda, Blooms. I remember dropping off film there, right? It was a photo mat. Here, how about this one? Please be kind and rewind. Yeah, I don't know that one. Mixtapes. Now some is like, some people were still burning CDs and stuff, but mixtapes. Like the thing with mixtapes is you had to wait until your song came on the radio. And then you're like trying to grab it and record it. And then you would always miss like the first few bars of the song, right? How about this one? Encyclopedias. Anybody have an encyclopedia set? No. How about this? Memorizing at least 20 phone numbers. How many phone numbers do you have memorized? I have to think twice. I don't have my girls, my daughters is like, I don't have their phone numbers memorized. They're just there. Or I tell the phone, I can't say it because my phone will go off, right? If it's like call, right? How about this one? Selecting, spending your Friday night selecting a video at Blockbuster. Everybody descended on it. You picked up a pizza and picked out your movie. And then the last thing was the yellow pages. We don't have those things anymore, right? So we're going to talk about a little bit about, how we're going to go and look as far as the different generations. And for the first time, we've got sometimes 3, 4, maybe even 5 different generations in the same workplace. So a little bit about me. Let's go in here. Plug back in. There we go. All right. We're cooking with gas now. There's about me. So anyway, my company is Appex Partners, and I also have been working with John Maxwell since 2018 as a corporate facilitator and executive program leader with John, and working with Maxwell Leadership. The thing is like what we do is we try to help bring teams together and make them more productive by communication, collaboration, and connection. So we're going to talk about how we're going to be able to do that with these different generations. Now, you might have seen this on social media, but there's been a war going. Now, the war started off kind of tongue in cheek with, the boomers saying how to confuse a millennial, right? Those little things that, they're never going to get this, right? Kind of poking fun. It was kind of lighthearted, right? And then the millennials came back with the okay boomer, right? It was like, okay. And it was so good natured, right? And then we had, okay, Karen, right? With the millennials coming back to the boomers and the busters is like, yeah, you know what the Karen is, right? The Karen is like, I want to talk to the manager. I want to make a complaint. I want your name and your employee ID number, right? So this started getting a little bit more tense, right? With the okay Karen. And then we have Doggo. Have you heard of Doggo? This one was different for me. I never heard this one, but this one was the Gen Z was going back to the millennials and kind of throwing some shade on them, saying, yeah, you're cool, but we're cooler, right? It's like, you're not all that in a bag of chips. You know, we know what's going on, doggo, right? And then this one was hurtful. Then we got nasty. This one was COVID-19. When the seniors were more affected by the virus than anybody else, and somebody created the hashtag boomer remover. So it went from good nature to something. Now what this shows is we really have a divide created within our generations, right? Now the thing is, the generation gap, the term generation gap was actually coined about 50 years ago by Life magazine editor James Polly. And Bobby went as like, and talked about the generations then. Now, I go back a ways. I'm a little bit older. I'll tell you when we get to the chart how old. But like every generation always looks at the newer generation and like, oh man, we're in big trouble. Right? I even was watching a movie the other night. It's like somebody was getting bumped into on the street and like, oh, people are so rude. I don't know. I'm worried about this generation. It's like they're all preoccupied with themselves and everything. It's like, every generation has been like that. I remember back when I was in school, we did a play. It was one of my favorite plays. It's starring Dick Van Dyke and Anne Margaret. Favorite people, right? Dick Van Dyke and Anne Margaret. It's called Bye Bye Birdie. And there was one where Harry McAfee, the father of the daughter, selected for the last kiss. It kind of goes like with Elvis leaving for the army kind of thing. It was a spoof on that kind of thing. It was a musical. And Harry McAfee, the father of the daughter picked for the send-off kiss, talks about kids. I don't know what's wrong with these kids today. Laughing, singing, dancing, grinning, morons. That's my singing. That's as much as you get with it. But I played Harry. And I'll never forget that, because even back then, that movie came out in 1963. And it's been redone by high schools and college theater departments over the years. But even back then, they were like, the new generation, there's something wrong with them, right? So we're going to talk about how we can go from something's wrong with them to how can we learn, how can we bring them together, right? So we're going to look at this a little bit, and those generation things. And here's a case study. Here's Tony Polsano. Tony was a senior in college, and he was a marketing major. And Tony had this fascination. Now I'll call it nerdy fascination with paint and pigments and how paint is made and how you get these different shades and how cool is that, right? He was working for a large painting company. I can say it, Sherwin-Williams. And he decided that, hey, this is kind of cool. Maybe other people would think this is cool too. So he started a TikTok account showing people how you mix paints and how you get these different colors and how different colors in your space can change the mood of the room and everything. Well, then he did research into like how paint has developed over the years and how originally that, this paint was tinted with fruits and vegetables and grasses and things like that. So what got him in trouble is he put some blueberries in some paint, and it's like it was kind of giving an example of what would, it was just an example. It wasn't like Sherwin-Williams was actually making paint with blueberries, right? But he thought this was cool, and he developed about 1.3 million followers on this TikTok account. He had 24 million likes. And he presented this to his management, thinking this would be a great thing for our store to create some awareness, right? Have some fun and show people what the possibilities are. Well, management didn't like that. And they got complaints from customers thinking that he was doing stuff on the side, he was stealing paint, all sorts of things. Bottom line is, they fired poor Tony. So Tony went and when he graduated, he took all of his ideas, moved to Florida, started his own paint company. The thing is he presented something as an idea as this young professional coming up, looking at marketing. Here's an idea to leverage the power of social media and make people think differently about their space. The management at the store that he worked at didn't see the opportunity. Now his company, I think it's called Tonester down in Florida, and it's huge. But he's done a boutique paint company out of that. Now here's Karen. No, not Karen, Laura. No, she's not a Karen. Laura is an HR manager. She's an executive, been in HR for a long time. And she says she loves working with the young people, the new college graduates, and mentoring them and bringing them up and moving them into their careers and seeing how they really develop. But she said lately, as she's interviewed, she told some stories about some of her interviews and how they went. One, the interview went great. And she thought this young lady has got great potential. They ended the interview. And the young lady said, well, now we need to set up a time for my parents to interview you to see if you're an appropriate boss for me. Wanted her to talk to her parents. That didn't fly. All right. Another one, because we're all attached to our phone, is they came in and they wouldn't look up. They were texting during the interview. And then to add insult to injury, a phone call came in and the young man picked up the phone, took the call, and then paused and said, could I have a moment to take this call? Could you leave the room? It was her office. So she said, you can have all the time you like. The interview is over. There's the door. Right. Now the thing is like, she's found that the schools were preparing students for the classroom, but not necessarily the workplace. And that was what was disappointing to her. But the thing is where we see what this example, both of these are examples of those extremes, right? That the generations didn't come together and learn anything from each other about what was important to them, what was going on, what they needed, or what their expectations were. So we're going to talk about that a little. Okay. So that's age discrimination suits. Now this is just in the last 2 years of you just do a quick Google, age discrimination lawsuits. And there's everything on here from Marriott to Citibank to IBM to WeWork to Eli Lilly, on and on and on it goes. And the thing is age discrimination suits are not just the young people saying, well, I didn't get promoted because I'm too young. It's also the more mature employees saying, I didn't get promoted because I'm too old. So it goes both ways. The thing is when we look at this, is like, we have this conflict, right? We're not collaborating, we're competing. We're not communicating, we're conflicted. And how do we bring those things together? Because the thing is like I said, now we've got more generations in the workplace today than we really ever have. So how do we do that? What's the generation gap really done? Like I said, this has been around the idea has been around 50 years. Is we think that we just need to tolerate that other generation. Now, here's an interesting thing. A Market Watch survey from last year said that most workers, when surveyed, said that they already expected not to be able to get along with a colleague of a different generation. How does that affect the team when people are going in with the expectation that I'm not going to get along with you because you're not my same perspective, right, on life. No, you don't share the same life experiences that I do. But already expecting not to be able to get along with a colleague. Now, the thing is we see this more and more, don't we? That we start creating our own echo chambers. We hang around people who like things like us, who talk like us, who enjoy the things like us. We hang around people that are in the same point of life that we are. Who does that damage? Who benefits from that? Nobody, right? We're just in our cocoon, going through life, right? Instead of tolerating. Now, the thing is, that's interesting is, we also gravitate towards those realms, right? Those pods. The interesting thing is my aunt had her 70th birthday party just a few weeks ago. And I thought about this as I was looking at this, and I was like, her 70th birthday party. Now she's the youngest sibling of my dad and my uncles. She's the youngest sibling. We had all the cousins. They're all about my age. Then we had my cousins' kids. My kids are grown and gone, and then they've got their kids, right? And I looked around the room and I saw all the cousins were sitting together. All the kids of the cousins were off playing around. And the little kids were, and I'm like, wow, even this is like, we walk in there and we're having a Hawaiian luau themed birthday party. It's all family. Now there were some friends there, but it was mostly family. And we still separated and isolated within our pots, within our age groups, with people that we were in common with, instead of, and I even talked to my wife afterwards about this, and I said, I don't even know so-and-so's kids, my cousins. And the thing is like, it used to be when I was growing up, we would go over to Grandma and Grandpa's house on a Sunday afternoon, and everybody was there. That doesn't happen so much anymore. So we lost that. But everybody sort of sticks to themselves. So again, how do we break out of that? Not just tolerate, but also look as far as what advantages that we can have by embracing those experiences in those other generations. Now, the thing is, it's like, it's really easy to stereotype, right? Have you heard what a stereotype is? Stereotype is a mental shortcut. That's really what it is. It's saying, I'm not going to invest the time to go deep, to learn about you, to understand you. And like I say, it's like, seek first to understand and then to be understood. We just don't want to do it. So we stereotype, we use that mental shortcut to say, well, all y'all are like this. And we see this more and more. All Midwesterners are like this. All East Coasters are like this. Now, my daughter lives in New Hampshire. They are weird because they say wicked a lot. Everything is wicked this and wicked that. I'm like, okay. And then she's starting to get a little twang on that, a little bit of, Northeastern twang in that. And I'm like, you're becoming a New Englander, it's like, come on. But it is like, we start looking at these different perspectives and saying, they're all like that. They're all like this. Not the case, is it? Well, look at this. Have you ever heard anyone complain like this? It's like, all those builders, those old folks are dinosaurs. They're the past. It's passé. It's not relevant anymore. No. Boomers. Boomers are just stubborn. They're set in their ways. Not going to change. What about this one? All Gen Xers are skeptical. Millennials are narcissistic. Right? It's the participation trophy generation. It's all about, you love me, you really love me, right? And then those Gen Zers, those fragile snowflakes of those Gen Zers, right? Do we hear these generalizations happen a lot? Now, are there people in my generation, the Gen Xers, that are skeptical? Yeah. Are there boomers who are stubborn? Yeah. Are there the builders, the silent generation that we'll talk about? Are they dinosaurs? Yeah. I'm on a couple of committees that have some I'm probably we've got one that's a borderline millennial, but everybody else is older. And it is, when you're talking about ideas, some people are stuck in their ways, don't want to try things. Like I say, nobody likes change. The only person who likes change is a dirty baby. Think about that. But it is, it's like, there's people that are there, but it's like, we can't make those stereotypes like that. It's okay to try to get to understand them and understand what informs their perspective. What I say is context informs our conduct. context informs our conduct. So look at things from the context of where they're coming from, what their life experience is, and how that shapes their worldview and their mindset. Okay. So talk about shaping. This cement. Now, my wife, she worked for a bank. She was a banker. And when they would hire these new young tellers, a lot of them were college students, right? And she'd come home and she would, a lot of times she would tell them, was like, your brains are not fully developed yet. I said, you can't tell people that, your brain's not fully developed. It's like, what are you thinking, But it is true. In fact, it's like, there's a lot of studies on it, but it's like here, simply put, when the brain is young and not yet fully formed, there's a lot of flexibility and plasticity, which explains why kids learn so quickly. And that's Deborah Anaconda. She's a professor of management at MIT. There's a lot of studies around this. This is why like little kids can learn 3 languages, right? You got them into preschool and everything. They're already coming out. They're testing for Mensa, right? Thing is, it's just like concrete. You can pour it. You can do a lot of things with it when it's wet and pliable. But as it hardens, it starts taking a jackhammer to make change, right? To make a dent in it. Same things happen with us as we get fixed in our ways, right? And like I said, change is hard. But if we can understand that and where we're coming from and what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, we can make some differences. So each generation in this has a different outlook, different paradigm. And think about this as like not only within the workplace, within your teams, within your family too. Just like the example I gave with the birthday party. Maybe you got kids, you got younger kids, little ones, or friends that have kids. Or if you're an aunt or an uncle, or you've got little nieces and nephews running out, it can help inform too. Because I do know that both my girls are millennials. They're grown and gone, but they have a different mindset. They operated differently than I did. And once I learned that, oh, this is where they're coming from, then it helped inform how to interact with them. So here, now this 5 generations coming of age. This is what we're going to spend some time. Okay. So the builders, the boomers, the busters, millennials, and the homelanders or coronials. There's a lot of different names for this one, but this is based upon the book of Dr. Tim Elmore. Tim is the president CEO of Growing Leaders out of Atlanta, Georgia. Tim is one of my friends and mentors. And Tim spent a lot of time at the University of Georgia doing a lot of research into this. And he's recognized as an expert on the generational shifts. And what he did in this book is like, look at the era when they were born. So builders, the silent generation, between 1929 and 1945. That was my parents. My dad was born in 1936, my mom in 41. Thing is when what was going on when they were brought up is my dad actually immigrated here from Europe. He was from Romania. He lived through World War II. He told stories of laying in a field, watching American bombers come overhead to bomb the oil fields in Ploiești. My mom, born in 41, my grandpa didn't serve because he was on the railroad. He was back then, what we now know as an essential worker, right? He was working the railroads back here. They have a different perspective because they saw the Great Depression, they saw World War II, and they saw scarcity. Then we have the boomers, the pig and the python, the big movement through. This was the boomers because it was the booming generation, because all the returning GIs after the war came back home, got married, started families, and little pink houses started popping up everywhere, like John Mellencamp says, right? 1946 to 1964. Then we got the busters. That's me. I'm right in here. I was born in 65. So I kind of see a little bit of the similarity to kind of straddle the line. But I like to still say I'm a buster because that makes me feel younger. 65 to 82. Now, the thing with us is, look at what we did. I was 10 years old when I remember watching on TV the helicopters evacuating personnel off the embassy roof in Vietnam. I remember the Vietnam War on TV. I remember the oil shortage and my dad having to go and be in line to get gas. I remember Watergate. Now, that's going to inform, I'm going to talk about that, our narrative, but that informs people in my generation that's like skeptical, yeah, because we saw being lied to by government, by leaders, alienating, that we're like, we're not going to trust leaders as readily. And then we got millennials, my daughters, 83 to 2000. And we'll talk about, you know, sort of the pendulum shift between these generations. And then Homelanders, Generation Z. And now where do they come from? My dad was always like this. Be thankful you got a job. You've got a job, keep it. Now, my dad, he worked for the phone company. But before that, he owned a restaurant. And before that, he worked for Admiral Corporation. So when he came here, him and my uncle got jobs at Admiral Corporation. My dad was really proud that he went and moved around with Admiral. And you probably don't know Admiral anymore, but it was an electronics manufacturer. My dad made stereos back when stereos were like as big as these tables, right? And it was a real struggle because we moved my mom and dad off the farm out west of town into a condo here in Bloomington and getting rid of all their stuff. And one of those things was a stereo that my dad made, the wood cabinet thing with the turntable, and it had an AM radio in it, you know, and everything. It was heavy. It was big, but my dad always worked that. You know, he was a member of the labor union. He was a proud member of the union. He worked for General Telephone before it was Verizon and Frontier and everything else here. And his perspective was, you get a good job and you stick with it. He was one of those that like you retire and you get your watch and you're off on retirement, right? Get a good job and be grateful you got it. And then the boomers, I deserve better because they looked at their parents, the builder generation, like they suffered. They suffered through war. They suffered through depression. They suffered through recovery. I deserve a better life than what my parents had. So their perspective is a little bit different. And then my generation, keep it real, right? Because of the things that we saw with Vietnam and the oil shortage and everything. It's like, that was actually the catchphrase is like, let's be real. Let's be honest, right? Things are not as rosy. Don't tell me everything's great. Somewhere it's not, right? Somewhere there's a little, so let's just keep it real. Then the millennials, life is a cafeteria. And I see this with my girls because now do either of you have like a record collection? CD collection?
I used to.
You used to. Used to. Okay. See, and like my girls is like, they never bought albums or CDs or anything. Because why? Because they buy a CD and there's 12 songs on there and one's good, right? So the idea of a cafeteria is like, let's just pick and choose what we want. And I don't want to go and just get one thing. I want to customize it, right? Because we're special. We got the participation trophy. I can customize anything the way I want it, right? Even wardrobe, looking as far as outfits and everything. I remember, I'm really colorblind. And my wife, she goes a little bit over the top with my color blindness. She goes, you're like a dog. Everything's gray. I'm like, no, I can see shades. I can see colors just fine. I like to freak people out though. It's like, they say, well, how do you drive with the stoplights? I'm like, oh, well, top is stop and bottom is go. Anything in between is go faster, right? I can see the colors, okay. But everything is, to them, is all customized. So they go on and they download one song. I remember, what was it? Zap, no, not Zap. Started with a Z. It was the music download service that got shut down when it was all illegal. You couldn't do it, right? And I remember them getting on there and downloading songs. I was freaking out because that's not legal. You can't do that, right? It's like, yeah, I remember it was like a little devil emoji thing on there. But that's the thing. It's like, I'll pick and choose what I want, right? I'm going to make it special for me. And then the Homelanders, the Gen Z. Now, Tim spent a lot of time interviewing hundreds and hundreds of middle schoolers, high schoolers, college students, and young professionals, recent college graduates. And he found that talking to them, this Generation Z is, we're hoping things get better. Now look at their perspective. When they were born, they've not known a world without 9/11, without taking your shoes off at the airport. They are a generation that has grown up with mass shootings. Mental illness for this generation is an absolute crisis. They've got a lot different perspective on the world than what a lot of the other generations had. Both my girls, both my millennials, are both clinical therapists. I say I had a lot to do with that because they're trying to figure out dad, right? But they see this is because they both do specialization with kids, that mental health is a real crisis for them. The uncertainty that goes along with operating in society today, okay? Then we've got the attitude towards authority. Now, this is especially important in the workplace, right? Getting a perspective on being told what to do and when to do it and how to do it, right? Is like my dad's generation, respect them. No matter what, they're in a position of authority and you respect that authority, right? I was always taught the police are there as your friend. If you're ever in trouble, find a cop. If you're ever in trouble, find a firefighter. You know, find somebody like this that will help you. Now we're telling kids these are not good people. They don't have a friend. My dad was always like, you know, no matter what, the boss is the boss. So because he's the boss, you respect that. That's how he was brought up. Then the boomers, throw them all out, replace them all, right? Now, the interesting thing is I was talking about this with somebody and said, look at, and this is not a political thing at all, but look at what we've got is Joe Biden was born in 1942. Donald Trump was born in 1946. Hillary Clinton was born in 1947. Robert Kennedy Jr. was born in 1954. He's the youngest in the pack, right? What informs, right? Context determines conduct. The boomer generation, replace them, move them all out because of that, what they saw happening, right? We don't respect leaders like we used to. The busters, my generation is, okay, we just suffer through it. They will be gone. And I've heard this so many times with a lot of my peers in the workplaces that I've been in. It's like you get a bad boss in there. It's like, just suck it up because they'll be gone in probably a year or two. And then there'll be somebody else. Maybe they'll be better, right? Just endure and get through. Millennials, again, my girls, the interesting thing was my girls, and I love this about them because they got a little bit of my entrepreneurial streak. They're both in private practice now. Because they're like, I'm going to set my schedule. My oldest daughter, my oldest daughter is a little bit of a rebel. That she's been a therapist for 15 years-ish, something like that. And they both started out at residential treatment facilities for youth. So they've seen a lot of stuff. She decided, I need a break. So she's like, I'm changing my work hours. I am taking a 4-day weekend and a 3-day work week. And then my 3-day work week is going to change because now she is very creative. She was a double major psychology and theater. And so she's always been very dramatic. And so she's starting to, you know, training to do nails as a creative outlet. But she goes, I have a lot more fun doing that. Right? But it's all about choosing. You know, what do we want? Right? I want to choose my work, you know, my work schedule. I want to choose my boss. The interesting thing is, and I saw this too as a professor at Lincoln College, is a lot of students are like, and Tim Elmore also we talked about this last year, that when he was at University of Georgia, he said the same thing when he interviewed students. They would say, well, she's my professor, but she's not my mentor. She's my professor, but not my mentor. I have to take her class, but I'm not looking for her to add value to me and help me develop and become what I want to become. They're picking who they're allowing to add value into their lives, right? Not just taking who assigns it. And then the homelanders, the Gen Z, is interesting thing is, not sure I need them. Why? Because they're asking Google and Alexa questions that we would ask our parents, that you would ask the boss. Everything is getting fact checked today. Right? So I would say that they're more empowered, that there's like, I don't know if I really need somebody to tell me what to do. Now think about this generation two. They're the early, they're early coming in to be consumers. They're the youngest generation coming in, right? These are the recent college graduates, the 20-somethings, right? Think about, they lived through COVID. They finished college in COVID. Many of them had jobs lined up before COVID and like, guess what? I had a job, now I don't. Nothing, I can't count on anything. Rises up to the gig economy. Not sure I need them. I'm not sure I need a boss. The largest rental car company doesn't own a car, Uber. The largest rental company doesn't have any hotels or properties. It's Airbnb. The rise of the gig economy, the rise of the sharing economy. Just like my daughter, I can shift over here and start doing nails. I'm going to do something different, completely out of the blue. I'm just going to shift. I can do that. I'm not sure I need. Now, the interesting thing here is, and when it looks as far as within businesses, look at this as far as the market perspective is goods. So like my parents. Now, before this, my grandparents, my grandma, when it comes, I'm going to use sort of birthday parties as an example for this. It's like my grandma, when it came to making a birthday cake, you get out the flour and the eggs and the milk and everything. It's made from scratch. Grandma made cakes from scratch. What did my mom do? This generation, all of a sudden now, Betty Crocker cake mix. My mom would take a box of baking mix, right? And it was like, and she'd bake a cake. Grandma would go and put it all together. The different perspective on things. Then we've got the boomers. This is services. So now, instead of getting the cake mix, we're going to go to the bakery and we're going to buy a cake and have your name etched in the top. Happy birthday, right? Services. I remember this vividly, is oil change. Did anybody change their own oil? I remember this like it was yesterday. It's hilarious. My dad had an old VW bus, red and white VW bus, and it was a stick shift. And I remember that, and my dad, like I said, he worked for the phone company, but he also farmed. We had a swine confinement operation, and we had some cattle at times, and we had a huge rabbitry. Times like we had a lot of rabbits. He always had something going on, right? There was always something else he was, looking to do, right? He was always busy, but he would change the oil. And I remember him teaching my brother, it was like, to get under there and ratchet that filter off and everything, and how to do all that. Oops. And one day my mom had taken that Volkswagen bus to town, and she didn't like driving a stick shift, but she took it and got the oil changed at an oil change shop. And when she came home and told my dad that she paid to have somebody change the oil, to the moon. It's like, oh my, it was a travesty. He felt like, why couldn't I get this done? That's my responsibility. But she had the oil changed. So the advent of the service economy was really brought about by the boomers, right? But it's like, yeah, they were used to doing everything on their own. Now, busters like me are all about experiences. Think about this. Do you like Starbucks? Yes. Are you a Starbucks like aficionado? No, it's like, I got a friend of mine that lives down the street from me. She is what I call a frequent flyer. She's in that Starbucks drive-through every day. Along about, 8 a.m., she's in that Starbucks drive-through down there off of Rab Road. She's getting her fancy macchiato, whatever, there's all the what it's like. Think about it. Starbucks opened at Pike's Place Fish Market in Seattle, 1971. Experiences, Gen X. My daughters, because we wanted to have experiences. Now it was not, we did not go and we did not bake a cake. We did not go buy a cake. It was all about birthday party experiences. And I remember one for my oldest daughter, she loved all animals, but she really loved horses. We had a pony party for her out in Carlock, a pony party at a stable. And this got into like a competition with all the other moms, with birthday party competitions. I think we started with like a clown that came and did balloon animals and stuff. And then it just kept getting bigger and bigger, And I think the last one was the pony party. That was like the whoa. I mean, you have all these kids and they get to ride ponies around in a circle and everything. Well, I'm looking, it's like, and the cake was only a little part of it. Cake was only, $10, but you spent hundreds of dollars for this pony party because God forbid, you can't let an 8-year-old not have a birthday without an experience, right? And I look over at that birthday cake and all the kids are having fun and I'm feeling very, very, very good dad moment, right? And then I look and there's flies on the cake and there's flies on the stuff from the horses on the floor. And I'm like, oh man, that's just, those flies are never again. I drew the line. There was no more pony parties after that part. No way. Then millennials want transformation. They don't just want experiences. They want transformation. Oh, I gotta tell you too. My oldest daughter, she worked at Chuck E. Cheese here in town when she was in school. Chuck E. Cheese opened in 1977. Disney World, 1971. All about experiences. But then those experiences weren't good enough for the millennials. They want transformation. They want something that's going to be impactful. Tim says that there's a company down the road. He lives in Alpharetta. And he said there's a company that shows up in a limo, puts together a whole like prom set for birthday parties. These transformational, but the other thing is things like math, history, educational experiences, things that are like, you're going to learn something, right? It's like things that will that will impact you, not just the pony party, but now it's taking us up further, that these are going to feed value into what you can be a long-time career aspiration, a vocation, avocation, something that's going to impact your life, right? They want that transformation. Now, the other thing is too, with millennials, is Tim also talks about, because his background came as a youth pastor, he said also millennials go and look at that transformation. They're looking for things that from a spiritual context. Remember, the leaders, they choose them. So a lot of times what they're seeing is from a faith-based perspective, they're saying, oh, we'll take a little bit of Jesus, a little bit of Buddha, a little bit of Dr. Phil and Oprah, and boom, I've got a belief system. They pick and choose, but they want that transformation, what's going to change their lives. Then we got the Gen Z, consume and create. Think about it. They can go and make an app and make money, and then they create from it. It's a rental perspective. We're not buyers. We're sharing content. We're sharing information. It's all about that. So again, that market perspective on what they're looking for helps inform how we approach them from a market perspective, what they're looking for, from a workplace perspective of how we interact and what their expectations are, right? Do you feel that disconnect? That's the thing that we have to work with, is how disconnected we are, that we don't take the time to understand others. We make the shortcut. We make the mental shortcut in the stereotype. So what do we need to make that connection? Because a lot of times when I talk to organizations, they're like, and it could be like, let me go back here to the table. Now, the thing is, if I got this table for you too, because I'll get a little QR code for you so you can download this thing. Within one company. So when I was teaching organizational leadership, I gave an assignment to some of the students. Is like, look at your past experience, because these were all adult learners, right? Look at your past experience and what could diversity help with improving the performance of the workplace that you were in, if there was more diversity. Well, one young lady came back and she goes, well, the only place I've worked has been my family business. And it's located in a small town. There is no diversity. They're all white males. So what do I have to work with here? And we talked about it. And it's like, well, what are the ages of the people working in your family business? She goes, well, it was started by great grandpa, and grandpa still works there. He runs things. My dad, my brothers. There was 3 generations actively working day to day. Now, the thing is like even here in the builders, those are people who should be well past retirement, but maybe they enjoy the work. They're coming back into the workforce to have something to do or supplement retirement income. Or many times, maybe they're the ones who started the company. They're the founder, right? They're still involved in the day-to-day. I got several companies I work with. It's like the founder, he's still got an office because he needs someplace to go to, right? When his wife kicks him out of the house, go to the office, right? And he's still involved. He's still actively involved. And then we've got the boomers and the busters, and then we got the millennials. The homelanders are just now coming into that workplace. So you can see we could have all 5 that are all in one workplace. So what do we need to make that connection? Humility. Be open to those outside perspectives, that they bring something to it. The thing is when we look at it, would you agree that the builders and the homelanders, the Gen Z, both have things of value to contribute to a team? What do you think that, so what do you think let's go back here. What do you think that the builders have to contribute? What do you think? Experience, good. Kara, anything?
I mean, it kind of goes with experience, but just like the history and like.
History, okay. Legacy, right? Perspective. One of the things is like, look at this, be grateful you have a job, respect authority, fierce loyalty, right? Loyalty and that experience. The boomers, that experience, right? They've seen a lot of stuff, right? What do you think that the Gen Z is bringing to the table? Like, just look at like that small family business and the Gen Zers, those 20 somethings, they're coming into the workplace. What are they contributing?
New ways to do things.
New ways to do things. They've got that entrepreneurial kind of hacker mentality. How do we make this work better? Right? Millennials, what do you think that they bring to it? I'll give you one. Confidence, right? Self-assuredness, right? That can-do attitude. The busters bring that pragmatism to it, right? Sort of that healthy skepticism, right? It's like, okay, because they'll question things, Right? And the thing is a lot of times when they're not questioning to diminish it, they're questioning to understand, running it through verbally, right their head. But look what happens here. Here, we have this generation. We have challenges, right? Here, this is the 50s, early 60s, confidence. This time, challenges, confidence, challenges, right? We go through these peaks and valleys. So here, going through those times of challenge gives us that resilience. Here, an era of opportunity. Here, we're back to challenges again, right? See how that informs their worldview, what their mindset is, and being able to understand that. So when they go through that, understand those other perspectives and where they're coming from. The Gen Zers today, again, the generation that grew up with school shootings and terrorism, war, they probably have more in common with the older generation than they really realize. Because they really don't take the time to understand. We've been through that before too, and understand it. And the older generation probably looks at that Gen Z, those fragile snowflakes, that they've been through a lot of stuff like we have as well. Constant war. Divided, polarized society. Look at the boomer generation with protests, right? Millennials also had that. The whole different movements and the Me Too movement and the Occupy Wall Street movement and everything. It's like they've got a lot more in common than they really think. But it takes time to go deep to understand where other people are coming from and their other perspectives. Respect. Honor others that are unlike you. When we hang around people that are in the same cohort as we are, we don't get any of those outside perspectives. We have that echo chamber. Look at how things are playing out in society today. Is we're angry at each other, right? It's like if we take the time to respect people. Again, if you see people with that they have value, then you can value them. You can honor them and respect them. If you devalue people, then you don't respect them. Last thing is curiosity. It would be great to ask questions. Ask questions. Here's a great question. Help me understand why, fill in the blank. Help me understand why you feel that way. Help me understand why you think this is a good idea. Help me understand why you don't think we should proceed down this path, right? Go first to understand and then to be understood. Ask the questions. The last thing is the flyer on there is like I do a 5-week mastermind on this subject that we break down. We take Tim's book, we break it down into a 5-week discussion and do that virtually over Zoom. Also can bring this into the workplace as a half-day workshop or a full-day workshop, or for events or things we do a keynote presentation around this topic as well. Now, I'm going to give you an assignment though. Okay. The old teacher in me got to give you an assignment, right? So Jack Welch, back in the early 90s, initiated a program called reverse mentoring that he took, I call the young buck, and teamed him up with an old buffalo and had the old buffalo learning from the young buck. Usually it's the other way around, right? Usually, somebody comes in the workplace, you team up, you want to put them together and you want to create that, okay, we're going to assign you a mentor, right? And it's always that older person, right? That senior person that's going to mentor and show you the lay of the land and the way we do things around here. Change that up, reverse mentoring, and learn from somebody that is a different generation than you. And maybe that is reaching out to somebody who's older, saying, teach me. Help me understand what your perspective is. Help me understand how you look at things today. Or maybe somebody who's younger, same thing. So I'm gonna challenge you to go and implement a reverse mentoring. Find somebody that you can talk to. Say, let's get together and talk. I'd like to find out more about your perspective on things. Why are you here? Just find out, why are you here? Where'd you come from? What's your experience been? How many other places have you worked? What were your roles? What did you learn in those roles? I find, at least myself, my mom passed away a couple years ago. My dad was born at 36. And I want to ask more questions of my dad and understand, what do you think? What were the lessons that you learned? Sometimes when we think about, what parents pass along, sometimes there's something really profound that happens at a moment or something. A lot of times it's those little things that just sort of add up. And it's like, what do you think of this? What's your perspective on it? Why did you do what you do? I just thought of another one. Because like I said, my dad started a restaurant. We lived up in Kankakee, and he started a steakhouse. And he went off for class to learn how to run the steakhouse out to Colorado. And I was thinking about it. In fact, as I was putting this together, I thought, I really need to ask Dad, because we've never really talked about it. It's like, why did you do that? Why did you take that risk? My daughters I went into business, started our own companies. But yeah, that was like 1970. Why did you take the risk on something that you knew nothing about? He never ran a restaurant. He never cooked before. Why did you take that risk? It's a good lesson I'd like to learn. So the last thing is this is your QR code. You can scan this. And if you scan it, give me feedback on how this went. Well, it was good, but as a thank you for doing that, then you can download the table with those 5 generations in the workplace. And when you scan that or go to this URL and just put in the code Gary, it'll ask you for some questions. Okay. All right. Any questions? Good? All right. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Hopefully you got something out of that. Some little takeaway for you. Well, Karen, now go back and tell Tony, we got to go and figure out how to work with these young bucks that come in here. Think they know everything.